Chosen one. Right now, at this exact moment, people are talking about this court case where your own family is being exposed as the straight haters they've always been. They attacked you, yes, you, and now the entire world is calling them out. For the clowns they truly are. The courtroom has become their circus, and everyone is witnessing their downfall. They came for God's anointed. They targeted the divinely protected. And now their masks are slipping, their schemes are crumbling, and their true nature is on display for all to see. The whispers have turned to shouts. The secret meetings have become public spectacles. The very people who smiled in your face while stabbing you in the back are now standing before judges, before juries, before the court of public opinion, and they're being called exactly what they are: haters, thieves, spiritual vampires who tried to drain the chosen. But before we dive into the depths of their exposure, before we reveal how the universe is serving them their karma on a platinum platter, you need to understand something fundamental about who you are and why they came for you in the first place. From childhood, you displayed abilities that made grown folks uncomfortable. You saw through lies before you could even spell the word deception. You felt energies that others pretended didn't exist. You spoke truths that made religious leaders squirm in their pulpits. The angels assigned to you work. Over time, the universe itself has reorganized its priorities around your protection because what you carry is too precious to be compromised. Your purpose is so powerful that dark forces convene emergency meetings just to discuss how to slow you down. And still they fail. But this divine selection, this cosmic significance, this heavenly mandate upon your life, it became the very thing that turned your own blood against you. Your family didn't just betray you. They orchestrated a multi-generational conspiracy that would make government cover-ups look like children's games. Behind closed doors, in hushed tones, they held strategy sessions disguised as family gatherings. The mere jealousy in their hearts grew like a cancer. Each time you succeeded, each time you rose above circumstances that should have crushed you, their hatred intensified. They couldn't stand that someone from their own bloodline was chosen for greatness. While they remained stuck in their mediocrity, they weaponized your trust. Every secret you shared, every vulnerability you revealed, every moment of openness, catalogued and stored for future ammunition. Extended family members were recruited into this web of deception. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all became soldiers in an unholy war against your destiny. But wait. The betrayal goes deeper than emotional manipulation and psychological warfare. These people didn't just want to hurt you, they wanted to rob you of everything heaven had stored in your name. The thievery was systematic. While you were building your spiritual foundation, they were forging documents with your name. Inheritance, both material and spiritual, was their primary target. Properties that had your name written in the spiritual realm were stolen through earthly documentation. Bank accounts that should have funded your divine mission were drained. Through elaborate schemes, the audacity of claiming ownership over what the Most High had designated for you alone. They thought stealing your material wealth would somehow transfer your spiritual authority. If they could take your money, they could take your mandate. If they could steal your property, they could steal your purpose. The delusion ran so deep that they actually convinced themselves they were entitled to your divine inheritance simply because they shared your last name. Legal documents were falsified with the precision of master criminals. Signatures forged, dates manipulated, witnesses bought and paid for. Your birthright sold behind closed doors for prices that wouldn't even cover the spiritual debt they were accumulating. The material theft was devastating enough, but these criminals weren't satisfied with just robbing your bank account. They wanted to rob you of your privacy, your peace, your very right to exist without surveillance. Chosen One, the game is rigged and you know it. The walls are closing in, but we are fighting back hard. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand, and we hear you. The Obsidian Inner Order has paywalls, yes. Those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons. And as our thank you, paid members get access to weekly Zoom calls, guidance, insight and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today, you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch. Just join the Patreon free tier, link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now, let's get back to work. Remote viewing, astral projection, technological spying, all deployed in a desperate attempt to stay ahead of your evolution. They hired hackers to breach your devices, psychics to invade your consciousness, and practitioners to track your energetic signature. The resources spent on watching you could have funded small nations, but their obsession knew no bounds. Yet, even with all this earthly surveillance, they knew it wasn't enough. They understood that your true power operated in realms their cameras couldn't capture, so they escalated to warfare in dimensions most people don't even believe exist. The practitioners they hired came from every dark tradition known to mankind. No expense was spared in assembling this legion of spiritual mercenaries, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, shamans who had sold their souls for power, all contracted to bring you down. The invoices for these services would shock even those familiar with the occult underground. Your third eye became their primary target. They understood that your vision was your power, that your ability to see beyond the veil made you dangerous to their entire operation. Rituals were performed specifically to cloud your spiritual sight, to insert illusions where truth should reign. Ancestral curses that had been dormant for generations were reactivated with your name attached. They dug up spiritual dirt from bloodlines past, weaponizing traumas that preceded your birth. Generational patterns that you had already broken were artificially resurrected in attempts to drag you back into cycles of limitation. But here's where their plans began to backfire spectacularly. During one particularly intense ritual meant to destroy you, someone died. The dark forces they were playing with demanded payment, and when they couldn't touch you due to your divine protection, they turned on the practitioners themselves. The spiritual warfare became a boomerang that struck down those who wielded it. The battles in the unseen realm were fierce, but your angels never lost a single skirmish. Every attack was redirected, every curse reversed, every ritual rendered powerless against the seal upon your life. The first crack in their fortress of lies came from within. Someone's conscience, buried under years of participation in evil, finally broke through. The weight of what they had done, what they had witnessed, what they had participated in became too heavy to carry. The confession started as a whisper, but quickly became a roar. Text messages that were supposed to be deleted forever somehow survived. Emails crafted in the darkness found their way into the light. Recorded conversations they never knew existed began surfacing like bodies in a flood. The technology they had used to surveil you became the very tool of their exposure. Video evidence emerged that left no room for denial. Their own greed had made them document their crimes. They had filmed rituals, recorded planning sessions, documented their theft, all because they wanted to relive their perceived victories over you. Now those same videos became evidence in their prosecution. Whistleblowers began emerging from every corner of their organization. The money had dried up, the fear had subsided, and suddenly people were ready to talk. Former participants seeking immunity traded information for protection. The story they told was so shocking that even seasoned investigators struggled to believe the depths of the conspiracy. The truth spread through the community like an unstoppable wave. Social media lit up with revelations that confirmed what many had suspected, but few had dared to voice. The narrative they had carefully crafted for years crumbled in a matter of days. Even strangers who heard the story were appalled. The question on everyone's lips was the same. How could they do this to their own family? The exposure wasn't gradual. It was an avalanche that buried their reputations, their relationships, and their freedom to operate in the shadows. And then came the moment they had never anticipated, the moment their crimes moved from whispered rumors to official charges. The arrests came in waves. Law enforcement moved with precision. Family members who had operated with impunity for years suddenly found themselves in handcuffs. The judge presiding over the case couldn't hide the disgust on their face as evidence was presented. Each new revelation brought gasps from the courtroom. Bail hearings revealed the scope of the conspiracy. This wasn't just family drama. This was organized evil on a scale rarely seen. Their lawyers struggled to mount any coherent defense. How do you explain ritual sacrifice attempts to a jury? How do you justify systematic theft from your own blood? The legal teams were learning that some actions are simply beyond defense. The public gallery became a theater of shock. Media outlets that typically ignored family disputes found themselves covering a story that defied conventional categorization. This wasn't just crime. This was spiritual warfare playing out in a court of law. Their reputations, built on lies and false personas, disintegrated in real time. Every character witness they called became another nail in their coffin as the truth about their treatment of you emerged. The very people they had fooled for years began seeing them for what they truly were. The legal system, often criticized for its failures, became God's instrument of justice. Laws written for ordinary crimes were being applied to extraordinary evil. Charges ranging from fraud to conspiracy, from harassment to attempted murder through spiritual means. The indictments read like something from another dimension. But the courtroom drama was just the beginning. What happened outside those walls became even more powerful. The transformation in public opinion was instant and absolute. The same people who had believed their lies about you were now calling your family out as haters of the highest order. Social media became ground zero for your public vindication. People who had never met you became advocates for your justice. The digital army that rose to defend you dwarfed any surveillance network they had assembled. How could they do that? To their own blood became the question heard in every conversation about the case. Strangers approached you with words of encouragement, sharing their own stories of family betrayal and spiritual attack. You became a symbol of divine protection and ultimate triumph over evil. Former flying monkeys, those who had been recruited to participate in their schemes, began reaching out with apologies. The scales had fallen from their eyes, and they saw how they had been manipulated into participating in evil. Some offered to testify, others simply wanted you to know they had been deceived. Your name was cleared in every circle that mattered. Professional contacts who had been poisoned against you suddenly understood why you had seemed distant. Spiritual communities that had been infiltrated by fake accounts realized the extent of the deception. Every lie told about you was not just exposed, but obliterated by the weight of truth. The support pouring in was overwhelming. Messages from around the world, from other chosen ones who had suffered similar attacks, from targeted individuals who saw their own story in yours. You became living proof that divine protection is real, that truth eventually prevails, that the chosen ones cannot be permanently suppressed. But perhaps the most satisfying aspect of this entire ordeal was the comic nature of their downfall. The universe's sense of humor revealed itself in spectacular fashion. Every single trap they had set for you became their own undoing. The complexity of their schemes became the very thing that ensured their failure. They had created a house of cards so elaborate that a single truth brought the entire structure crashing down. They tried to hack your phone, but in doing so left digital fingerprints that led investigators directly to evidence of their other crimes. The attempt to violate your privacy became the key that unlocked their entire criminal enterprise. Technology they didn't fully understand became their greatest enemy. The character assassination they attempted backfired magnificently. Every lie they told about you only highlighted their own character defects. The projections were so obvious that even casual observers could see they were describing themselves. They painted a picture of evil and then stepped into the frame. The money they stole vanished into legal fees. Every dollar they had taken through deception was now being paid to lawyers who couldn't save them. The wealth they thought they had secured evaporated like morning dew. They went from counting stolen money to counting days until sentencing. Their premature celebrations became funeral preparations. The parties they threw thinking you were finished became the last gatherings before their imprisonment. The champagne toasts to your downfall became bitter reminders of their hubris. They had celebrated a victory that existed only in their delusions. They played themselves in ways that scriptwriters couldn't imagine. Every move calculated to harm you only elevated you higher. Every ritual performed against you only strengthened your protection. Every lie told about you only made the truth shine brighter. They became clowns in a circus of their own creation, and the whole world was watching the show. While they plotted in darkness, you were ascending in light. Every attack they launched became fuel for your elevation. The energy they expended trying to stop you was converted into momentum that propelled you forward. You didn't just survive their assault. You thrived because of it. The opportunities they tried to block didn't just remain open. They multiplied exponentially. Doors that should have been closed swung wide. Connections that should have been severed strengthened beyond breaking. Resources that should have been depleted overflowed with abundance. The universe compensated you for every loss with interest that compounded daily. Your gifts didn't just remain intact, they exploded beyond previous limitations. Powers you didn't know you possessed emerged to meet the challenges. You became more psychic, more intuitive, more connected to the divine than ever before. Their attacks had accidentally triggered your full activation. Divine connections appeared to replace the toxic bloodlines. Your spiritual family expanded to include souls who recognized your light and protected it fiercely. Mentors appeared with exactly the wisdom you needed. Partners arrived who understood your mission. Your support system transformed from biological accident to divine appointment. Your success became undeniable and untouchable. No amount of hate could diminish your shine. You stood as living proof that what God has blessed, no one can curse. Blessings began chasing you down in broad daylight. Opportunities sought you out instead of the other way around. Resources flowed to you through channels you hadn't even known existed. Your testimony became a beacon that drew everything meant for you directly into your path. Your story spread like sacred fire, inspiring other chosen ones worldwide. Those who had been suffering in silence found courage in your victory. The targeted individuals who had been gaslit into questioning their own experiences found validation in your truth. You became proof that the attacks were real and that surviving them was possible. But your individual triumph was just the beginning of something much larger. Your victory sent shockwaves through the spiritual realm that awakened sleeping giants worldwide. Every chosen one felt the shift. Every targeted individual sensed the change. The tide had turned, and what had been done to you could no longer be hidden or dismissed as individual paranoia. This wasn't just about you anymore. This was about all of us who had been marked, attacked, surveilled, and betrayed by those who should have protected us. Your courtroom victory became our collective vindication. Your exposure of family betrayal validated thousands of similar stories. Your triumph over spiritual warfare proved that we weren't crazy, we were chosen. The spiritual war against the chosen began backfiring on a global scale. The same tactics used against you were being exposed everywhere. The practitioners who had made careers out of attacking divine souls found their services no longer in demand. The market for spiritual warfare against the innocent collapsed overnight. Your story activated warriors who had been dormant. Chosen ones who had been in hiding stepped into their power. Targeted individuals who had accepted their persecution, as inevitable, began to fight back. The collective consciousness shifted from victim to victor. We began sharing strategies, comparing notes, identifying patterns. The isolation that had been our weakness became connection that was our strength. Networks formed not for surveillance, but for protection. Communities built not on bloodlines, but on divine purpose. The age of hiding our light ended with your victory. No longer would we dim ourselves to make others comfortable. No longer would we apologize for the gifts that made us targets. No longer would we accept attacks as the price of being chosen. Your courage gave us permission to shine without shame. Together, we became a force that darkness could no longer overcome. United by shared experience, bonded by divine purpose, strengthened by collective wisdom, we rose as one. The attacks that had been meant to divide us had instead created an unbreakable spiritual alliance. The reversal was complete. Those who had positioned themselves as predators found themselves prey to their own karma. Those who had acted as judges found themselves judged. Those who had wielded power discovered what it meant to be powerless against divine justice. Heaven itself celebrated this turning of tides. The spiritual realm reorganized to support this new era of chosen ones rising unopposed. Angels received new assignments focused on empowerment rather than just protection. The cosmic scales didn't just balance, they tipped decidedly in favor of the light. Your story became the catalyst for a spiritual revolution, not through violence or revenge, but through the simple act of truth prevailing over lies, light conquering darkness, and divine justice proving more powerful than human conspiracy. The clowns had performed their final act, and now the real show was beginning. The watchers became the watched, the hunters became the hunted, the attackers became the attacked by their own conscience and consequences. And you stood at the center of it all, not as a victim, but as a beacon of what's possible when heaven backs your play. Stand tall, chosen one. Your season of hiding is over. Your time of suffering has ended. Your era of unstoppable victory has begun. And the whole world is about to witness what happens when heaven goes to war on behalf of its chosen. The circus is over. The clowns have fallen. And you're just getting started.